We're thrilled to have welcomed our first grandbaby recently. But growing this precious human hasn't been easy on our daughter. The unrelenting pregnancy fatigue really took it out of her.
One thing that helped was keeping her fluids up, and she loved Rehydrate. Rehydrate is an essential electrolyte drink made by some great guys right here in Brizzy. It's safe during pregnancy and breastfeeding and is like a magical little energy and hydration boost for mum and bub.
If you're growing a little human or are just feeling a little run down, grab some at Coles today.
This is the Happy Families podcast with Dr. Justin Coulson. We are Luke and Susie, and this is the podcast for time-poor parents who just want answers now.
This one we're looking at today is about teaching our children to be respectful.
Oh, kids these days, Suze.
Well, this is the line that goes around, isn't it?
When I was their age. It's Dr. Justin, welcome to the show.
Hi, Luke. Hi, Susie.
Have you ever said it? Have you ever thought it? Have you ever felt it, that kids are losing the art of respect today?
No, because I know how much of a rat bag I was when I was a kid. Yeah. Honestly, I hear it all the time, and it drives me mad. We've got some great quotes from back in William Shakespeare's day, let alone last decade or last generation, and even further if they can be attributed correctly, where people are bemoaning youth these days and saying how terrible they are and how they're so disrespectful, and Shakespeare called it wronging the ancientry. That is, being disrespectful to their elders. I think that what we unfortunately do as grown-ups is we judge our children based on our current level of maturity rather than theirs. And it's not fair to the kids. I mean, they're kids, for crying out loud. Do they need to be respectful? Yes, they do. Will they learn it? Yes, they will. But they're much more likely to learn it when we actually show it ourselves.
Yes, that's very,
and
very
let
true.
me tell you, Susie, I know a lot of adults who really struggle to show high levels of respect, especially on the road or in shops, or when their own children are being disrespectful.
Yeah. Yes, that is so true. We can often be very short-tempered. We can, road rage is definitely an issue that you see out there, even if it's just within the car. But the kids see it. They soak up everything, don't they?
I remember, I'm for my poor dad, I can't believe I'm putting him in this. I remember still so vividly this experience that I had with my dad. I was sitting in the back seat of the car. I reckon I was about 6 years old, and somebody upset him. We're going back before the days of road rage. We're going back to the 1970s, early 1980s perhaps. And somebody ticked my dad off, and they blasted their horn at him. And I remember, he's such a passive, quiet, peaceful guy, but he actually reached over between the two seats and out the back window, and he was giving them the forks, because back in those days it was the forks. There wasn't just one; there was two fingers at the end of the and I remember thinking, "Oh my goodness! Like, this is serious stuff." And it's only gotten worse, especially on the roads. But the whole thing is, as adults, we struggle to be respectful. I was running a workshop in a school, so I travel the country. I do workshops in schools and organisations, and I talk all about relationships. And in this particular school, I was giving a talk on respectful relationships. And as I left the school, having just had this wonderful day with the staff talking about how we can create a respectful culture, I overheard a teacher saying to a student, "That's it, I've had enough. If you can't respect me, well, that's too bad. I demand that you show me some respect."
Wow.
And I thought to myself, she wasn't listening to what I said, because we how ironic that we're asking for respect in such a disrespectful way.
Yeah. And do you feel like there is a slight interpretation change of culture from one generation to the next of what respect looks like, and that could be part of the problem too? Like, how I respect you as a younger person is different to how you respected somebody 30 years ago.
Yeah, I think so. And we also confuse respect with obedience. You're being respectful when you do as I say, but that's not always going to work. Sometimes our children have got reasonable reasons for not wanting to obey us. And expecting pure compliance and absolute obedience, that's not always respectful on our part, and sometimes it's unfair to our children to mix the two.
Now, Suze, we're going to sort of take a little bit of a turn in the conversation here, just a little bit.
I've got a specific question for a specific group of parents when it comes to this whole area of teaching our kids respect.
Yeah, more on that next with our guest, Dr. Justin Coulson.
Everyone wants their family to be happy, but so much gets in the way. Work stress, commitments, and our children's challenging behaviour are some of the usual suspects. And we can all tidy up our parenting style and get clearer about what will actually make our family happier. 21 Days to a Happier Family is the best-selling parenting book by Dr. Justin Coulson, with answers to both common and complicated parenting problems. Combining cutting-edge scientific insights with real examples of family life in the trenches, you'll find dozens of strategies for making your family happier. 21 Days to a Happier Family. Available online and from booksellers everywhere and at happyfamilies.com.au.
It's a Happy Families podcast with Dr. Justin Coulson. We're Luke and Susie.
And we are talking about teaching kids respect. And we want our children, obviously, to learn to be respectful. And we know that they learn that through what is modelled to them. Children catch a lot more than through what they see than what they necessarily are taught by our own words. But I wanted to talk to you about a specific group of parents, Justin, because Luke and I, we have a son with a speech issue and he has been diagnosed with social anxiety. And I've got a number of friends with children on this autism spectrum who talk about the same kind of symptoms in their children of whenever an adult addresses them, they don't look them in the eye, they don't respond verbally, they tend to put their head down, they look away, they don't engage at all. And I know that for the generation of, like my parents' generation, that would be considered incredibly disrespectful to not respond to a question that an adult has asked. How do we, as parents with children dealing with a social anxiety, kind of, I guess, emotionally navigate that with our kids? That it's an anxiety issue for them.
Yeah, and we can become anxious about it ourselves.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, there's not a lot that you can do. It's not just kids that are on the spectrum or kids with anxiety either. There are some cultural issues as well. So in some cultures, it's considered disrespectful for a child to look at an adult or to speak back to them. So, you know, it's a little bit broader than that. And I think what we really need to do as parents is give ourselves a break. Most people, especially when they're dealing with a child, if the child is perhaps perceived as being a little bit disrespectful, most people will shrug their shoulders and say, funny kid, that one, and move on. As our children get older and they mature, maybe once they get to 10 or 12 or even 15, if we continually work with them and we're patient with them and we're respectful towards them, they will eventually start to get it. You know, we can use those moments as teaching moments and we can help them. But please, you know, if you're that kind of, if you're a parent with a child with those kinds of challenges, or a parent from a culture where it's just not the done thing, go easy on yourself and maybe smile apologetically at somebody if they don't like what's going on, and just give it time, because eventually it will work itself out.
The interesting
Beautiful.
thing
That's
is
lovely.
when we've had a situation with that with Royden and he's not spoken, and the person who, when I say, look now Royden, don't be disrespectful when someone says hello, you need to say hello, and we try and teach him in this process, and they go, oh no, it's fine, don't worry about it, it's fine, and they try and avoid, but I'm like, I'm not actually doing this moment for them. Like whether you get upset or offended at my son not talking to you is beside any point that I have at that moment. It's just a time for me to teach him about behaviour that is what we want to have him do. And with his anxiety, if we allow him to actually avoid the situation, then he wins and the anxiety wins, and we don't break the pattern. And so it's important for me. So I love it when we've had another adult and you know that they understand what you're doing, when instead of saying, no, it's fine, they stand there and they wait, and they just wait for you to get him to say hello, and then they go, oh, thank you so much for saying hello, and then that's it. They know to let you go through that process.
It's a really nice example. And at the same time, I think we should be mindful of the context, because while that is a really great example, there may be some situations where that may not be the best thing, and in which case we can pause and we can think, we can talk about this later. We can talk about this in the car, because it might be a little bit too anxiety-inducing in some circumstances. I think we've got to take each one on its measures. But I like that example. I think it's definitely a nice one.
Well, we always love the wisdom that you bring to us, and just that whole take it easy on yourself mentality that you bring to us as parents. Dr. Justin Coulson, you can find a stack of resources at happyfamilies.com.au. Thank you so much for your time.
It's great talking to you guys.
And if you're interested in having Dr. Justin Coulson speak at your school or your organisation, you can find that at justincoulson.com.